Hello, this is Debbie Lynn Toomey, Tufts Medical Center's Injury Prevention Coordinator, and you're watching Aging Strong, which is sponsored by the Quincy Health Department. Today's guest speaker is Yolando Spinola, and he is the Senior Project Program Manager for Walk Massachusetts. And he is going to talk about pedestrian advocacy training and, how we as pedestrians can be a part of this movement of change to make our environment be safer and more comfortable for us. So Yolando, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Debbie. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to share with folks what they can do in their community to impact things and improve the pedestrian experience. Let me know when I'm ready to share my screen. I'm excited.
Yeah, share your screen. And while you're sharing your screen, can you just share with us what got you into this type of work?
Yeah, definitely. I've been passionate about community engagement and like civic engagement for a very long time, probably since I was in university and college. That's where I was very active as a student. And then, I wanted to impact my community and be involved. Once I decided where I wanted to live and stuff, it's important, I think, for folks to impact where they live and be involved as much as possible. So I decided to continue to be a student who's active in my own community, learning as much as about what's going on and participating. And then that's how I learned about the idea of planning and transportation planning, housing planning, and decided that that's something that I'm passionate about, that I wanted to dedicate more of my energy and efforts into. Before I was doing more youth civic engagement, but then I decided to go into civic engagement of everybody through the planning lens. And I attended my own walk audit that Walk Massachusetts hosted, and decided this is a great place for me to land. So after working for a regional planning agency for a couple of years, I decided to apply and join Walk Massachusetts. And I've been here for 2 years and have been really enjoying it.
That's wonderful. So you must have taken a lot of steps. Over 10,000 steps, right?
Definitely over 10,000. Yeah. I think 10,000 is what the daily recommended amount. So I try to hit my 10,000 steps every day.
That's great. That's great. All right. So can't wait to learn more about what it takes to be a pedestrian advocate these days.
Yeah. So this is pretty broad concepts around how folks can be involved and report issues, and then push their municipal government to implement some of the to address some of the challenges that they're seeing in their community. Today, I want to quickly go over what are some of the problems that we're seeing on our roadways that are impacting pedestrians and all other road users, understanding the broad concept of walkability, and then think about what are those problems and solutions. And then think about this concept of a walk audit. How can folks participate in walking around their own community with other residents or other folks who are their neighbors, collecting some data, and then reporting some of those problems that they're seeing in a more formal way. So the walk audit is kind of like a tool or a method for reporting issues, and that's something that we utilize. And then I will then focus more on what are some everyday advocacy that folks can take part in and move things forward in their own municipal with their own municipal context. So I guess the problem, and I think a lot of people are very keenly aware of the problem. They might hear about the problems on the news. They might hear about a fatality or an injury, or a vehicle that hit a building, or a vehicle that hit a pedestrian, or a bicycle, or two cars that hit each other, or maybe they see it themselves when driving around. Maybe they're seeing people use their cell phones more when moving around their communities. Maybe they're seeing people drive a little bit more faster or reckless. So we definitely have a problem on our roadways, and these issues are impacting some of the injury data that folks are seeing in our hospitals, data that police officers are collecting on our roadways. In Massachusetts, on average, we're seeing around 3,000 injuries of pedestrians a year, and that's injuries, around 2,900 injuries of motorcycles. People on bikes, it's around 1,400 injuries of bicycles, and 62,000 injuries of occupant vehicles in general. And that's like an average from year to year throughout the whole state. And this has been kind of like there's been an increase. If you just look at the data between 2009 and 2018, it's been a 55% increase during that time period. And that is data that I think I want to just hone in on, because it's like concrete, it's well studied, and it's not fluctuating anymore. Some of the more recent data, my colleague Brendan, actually, I think you're gonna talk to him in the future, Debbie, and he'll talk about some of the more recent data connected to like injuries and fatalities on our roadways, specifically impacting pedestrians. That data is newer, and people are parsing through it. But this data here is more set in stone, and we clearly see that we have a problem. So there's been an increase, especially like since the cell phone has become more of a thing that folks are dealing with. That might be one of the contributing factors, but there are other things too. There's been a lot of changes in our society over the last 20 years that might be impacting some more of these challenges that we're seeing on our roadways. But yeah, so people know the problem, and they somewhat understand them in regards to like when moving around in their cars, when they're walking around on their feet. But I think it's important for us to like understand like that these issues don't impact everyone the same. There is a disproportionality with some of these different challenges that we're seeing on our roadways. So if you live in an environmental justice community, so communities that sometimes are disproportionately impacted by environmental topics, so like, you know, they might have more hazardous materials near them. They are predominantly people of color, low income. There's English isolation, so there might be new to this country and might not speak English yet. Some of those different pieces make it so that they are more likely, unfortunately, to be dealing with some of these challenges on our roadways. There's actually been 71. We know that just for pedestrians themselves, there's been they're 71% more likely to be dealing with being like a fatal pedestrian when moving around. So 71% of our fatal crashes in 2022 were people who lived in environmental justice communities. And older adults are another population that are disproportionately impacted. So we know that out of those injuries, 38% of the fatal incidents that happened in our state in 2022 were older adults. So that's definitely like a disproportional amount of a burden that they're impacting, that they're dealing with on our roadways. But
Yolanda,
yeah.
just a quick question. Can you go back to that slide? Yeah. So as far as the fatal pedestrian crashes, I'm just trying to understand, and I'm sure it's going to be different in each situation. Would it be because of the distracted driver? Is it because of the distracted pedestrian? Or is it the pedestrian having more faith that the driver will see them and stop for them? You know, what's going on in some of these situations that you think could be contributing to these fatalities besides, you know, the environmental justice area and the age?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different. It's a hard thing to like say it's this one particular thing. There's a lot of things that are impacting like the challenges on our roadway. Well, for us, the biggest thing is the built environment. So the design of our roads, the design of everything around us are actually like encouraging folks to move around in certain ways, and the built environment is not conducive to safety, but it actually is more trying to move people as fast as possible sometimes, or it's not allowing folks to move around as safe as possible. And some of these different populations here that I'm highlighting, so like older adults, if you are an older adult and you get hit by a vehicle, there's just a higher chance of you dying from that than a younger person. If you get hit by a larger vehicle and you're an older adult, it's not just an injury that you're going to the ER for. It's most likely going to be fatal. And that's just the nature of things. And for some of these environmental justice communities, they just happen to also live in places that there's more density. So there's a lot more cars moving around. There's a lot more people on foot. There's also those are also places where a lot of our roadways are moving the most people towards the city, and that's also where some of the more where more minorities live. So that's what we're why we see like a disproportional impact on them too.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So by creating safer roads, it doesn't just impact these people that I mentioned who are older adults or people of color or children, another population that are unfortunately vulnerable road users. But it doesn't just impact vulnerable road users. It helps us all out. In fact, it helps all modes. So creating safer roads for pedestrians actually helps people who are driving around. It's safer for them. It's safer for people moving via bike, or if they are using a motorcycle. It's just a safer road in general, and it's actually more enjoyable. It's more likely that people will move around in a variety of different ways if they feel like they are safe and people in their communities are safe. If the people are anxious and don't want to move around in certain ways, everybody's going to get into a vehicle and try to move around that way, and it's just there's a less likely. There's a higher chance of folks getting injured in that way, and there's more incidents. So it's good to just create a safer environment and for pedestrians, and then we see downstream effects for everyone else. So walkability is a pretty broad term, but today we're really honing in on the safety piece of it. But there's also the concept of like enjoyable places, making sure that people have what they need in regards to like amenities. Like you want to have trees so people have shade so that they can choose walking, right? You want to have benches so that older adults can choose walking and they know that they can take a break along the way. You want to have places for people to walk to. So like you can't have a place be like with no destinations, there's no activity, it's just all housing. Then like you want to have like grocery stores for people to walk to. You want to have coffee shops and parks and open space. So when there's more options for people in close to them, they're going to choose to walk to these destinations. Services like hospitals and schools, if they can access services at like city hall or town hall, those are all things that get people out of their homes and out of their vehicles and walk into these things if they're in close proximity. So yeah, today we're going to really hone in on the safety piece, but walkability is about also comfort, useful. You want useful things for people to walk to and interesting things. And if you have those things, people will walk around and not just like try to move around in other ways, like getting into their vehicle. But to have these things, we have to look at some of the problems and try to address those things. So the problems that pedestrians deal with on an everyday basis, these are some top ones that I want to highlight today and think about what the solutions are. So tripping hazards are an unfortunate thing that we see in our communities. Specifically, older adults are dealing with them every day. So that's like sidewalks that are falling apart. And we also see, sorry, 1 second here. We see issues with poor signage, cars that are speeding on our roads, lack of shade. Like I said, that there's not great tree canopies. that will also impact people dealing with the heat, especially like right now. Maybe people are really keenly aware of that, or in this last week, having those type of amenities are important for people to choose walking. Missing signs for crosswalks, or missing crosswalks in general. So not having that infrastructure in place makes it so people are less safe when moving around, and vehicles don't know where pedestrians are crossing or supposed to cross. People who are dealing with disabilities, you want to make sure that they have the infrastructure in place so that they are moving around in an accessible way. So there's specific guidance and resources that they have to have in a community in order for them to move around, and those are important to be in place. Again, lighting is important, specifically like for moving around at night. Here in Massachusetts, it gets dark really early in the wintertime. So around like, unfortunately, at 4:30, it gets really dark like in the middle of the winter. So we want to really think about like, how do we design our lighting, not just for vehicles. So many times lighting is really designed to move vehicles around in an efficient way and that they're seeing each other. But we really want to design lighting for all different type of road users and pedestrians. You can also design lighting in a way that really serves them and also helps them feel safe. So another thing is like this populations who, if it's really dark, in certain areas, they just don't want to walk through those areas because they don't feel safe, they don't feel seen. So that's something to also think about. If the signal timing is not correct and it's too short, that can also cause issues, especially if you're an older adult or if you're somebody dealing with a disability. You need to really need that the signal lights to be timed correctly in order to get from one side of the street to the other. And that comfort and that safety piece is important. And then you want to make sure that walkers can connect to public transit. They have to have good infrastructure in place for them to connect to transit. So shelters and benches and proper wayfinding to connect to public transit is all really important, so that walkers are not just walking just for exercise, or they're not just walking just to get to close things. But if walkers have good transit in place, they can also get to services that are further away, or they can access other recreational things that are further away, and they don't have to actually get into their vehicle to get to something that's further. So those are just some problems that I wanted to highlight today, and think about like, what are some of the different solutions. So tripping hazards, the sidewalks that are falling apart. Sometimes it's tree roots that are pulling up those sidewalks. Those are things that you can easily connect to your DPW. You can connect to your municipal government and report that issue through something called SeeClickFix. Especially if you live in Quincy, or if you go and work in Boston, and you see a problem there and you want to report it, you can take a picture of the problem and you can report it on the SeeClickFix app or the Boston 311 app. It's a great resource to report issues. You can also call 311 in Boston, or call DPW in whatever city that you live or work, and you can report those issues that you see. I really like using the app because you can actually take a picture and it geotags your picture. So it'll associate, your picture will have a specific location of where that problem is. So you can report everything from like those tripping hazards that you're seeing in your community to like other issues like littering, or maybe like a tree limb that fell and like is blocking a right of way for a pedestrian or something. And it works really well. And when you report an issue, it also gives you a number like that associates your problem with the specific like identification piece. So you can follow up with local government and say, and ask them like, I just want to see like, what's the progress of addressing this specific issue that I reported. So it's like a ticketing system. So you can really do a thorough job on like following up. Another issue that I highlighted was like trees and the lack of tree canopy. This really causes issues around like the heat island effect, especially if you live in urban areas. So areas where we have a lot more concrete and lack of trees, those areas are like soaking up all of this heat from the sun, and they're holding on to it. And so you're feeling like if you live in an urban area, even on those hot days, you feel a lot more than folks who live in areas that have a lot more tree canopy. And you want to make sure that your municipality is doing its part to make sure that they have a good amount of shade and trees. So you want to connect with an open space and green space committee in your municipality to make sure that they have a process for putting put trees down in different places, or maybe you can request a tree. You might want to see if there's a program in place in regards to that. You might want to check in with DPW to see how could you request a tree to be placed on a sidewalk near you. Maybe you have a vacant spot or something like that. And you can also connect to the state. There's especially if you live in a gateway city, there's a program right now for gateway cities where it's called Greening the Gateway Cities, and you can request to have trees placed in area like your own property. So that's a great program that exists, and it helps to just create more tree canopies so that people can like choose walking in their own community. The lighting issue that I highlighted, it's no pun intended there. It's an issue that like impacts road users. Some areas are better lit than others, but those places that don't have great lighting, you want to immediately report the problem to your local government, to DPW. If there's just lighting that's not working, you can report it on 311. Or just call DPW and let them know about that issue of lack of lighting. If you report the issue and it's still not addressed, maybe connecting to your city council or your reps locally to see if they can help move things along. And that's a really important thing to address as quick as possible, because if there's not proper lighting, then we actually see an increased amount of injuries at night when people are moving around on foot. So that's like a clear when people are not well lit and you can't see things. That's that there's a higher chance of injury and a higher chance of fatality. So the reporting the issues and connecting to your local government is a really key thing. So like reporting it via like the phone lines, like 311 in Boston, or calling DPW. You can easily research that online, going to your municipal website and looking for the DPW number. Connecting to your local reps, knowing who they are, building a relationship with them is really important. So that those are sometimes obvious, but it still needs to be said. Like you have to know who your city councilor is. Do you have a ward councilor? Who are the at-large ones that you can connect with to make sure that things are moving along? So, but you don't want to connect to those folks immediately. Sometimes you want to first report the issue to DPW or to transportation departments, because those folks are like the everyday staff that are trying to address the problems. So report it to them first, and then if you're still not seeing the problem addressed, you might want to escalate it and talk to folks who are your representatives. We also know that our crosswalks, sometimes they need to be repainted, or they are missing in certain places. So you might want to like connect to DPW and report them to repaint that or restripe it, or maybe what the method that is currently being used in your municipality is not the right, you feel might not be the right type of crosswalk. There's a variety of different designs. So you might want to connect to DPW and see like what are the design standards that they're using for painting crosswalks. So there is a difference between the two stripe method of crosswalks versus the ladders. We think that the latter method is actually safer because it creates more contrast for people who are using crosswalks. If there is like this brick format here or some type of color in the middle, that actually is also creates contrast. So if it's two stripes and some type of coloring or something in the middle, that's helpful. But if it's just two stripes, that's like the bare minimum. It's still better than nothing at all. But if you can just check in with your municipality and see what are they using in regards to like their methods for striping the crosswalks, and see if they can like improve it or really encourage them to use methods that are better for pedestrians. Bump outs are also another good solution for crosswalks. Sometimes there might be a vehicle that is not like there might be in the way, or there might be a tree or something that doesn't allow the pedestrian to stand out at the crosswalk. There might be lack of visibility of pedestrians at a crosswalk, right? So bump outs basically is a opportunity for pedestrians to be a bit more out there, and it creates more visibility for them for vehicles. So if they're able to like walk a bit more into the street, vehicles will see them and then they can then cross the street. So bump outs can be painted. That's probably like the bare minimum way of doing it, but they can also be raised bump outs and more connected to the sidewalk. And that will allow pedestrians to just have more visibility for moving from one side of the road to the other, and also shortens the road width for them. So like, especially for older adults, there's less road inventory for them to have to cross. So again, I recommend 311, like taking that picture, writing a description on the 311 app, the See Click Fix piece. The picture goes a really like a long way. If you can't take a picture, I understand, like maybe you only have time to give them a quick call, or maybe you only have time to write a quick description and you didn't take a picture or something. But a picture tells them give them a deeper understanding of what's going on, and allows them to like understand the exact location. Because all the pictures that we take on our phone, there's a actual like GPS geotag on it. So that will allow the DPW to know that's where that specific problem exists. So then you can, once you report the issue, the crosswalks most likely will get painted, or they'll add some new infrastructure and improve that. And you want to maybe connect to your local transportation department to follow up to see what is the course of action for addressing this. And sometimes these things don't happen overnight, and you might need to follow up to see if it's something that, if it doesn't happen this year, maybe it can happen in future years when there's more resources available, or when this is more of a priority versus maybe there's other things that they need to address more recently. The poor signage piece. So like if pedestrians don't know how to move around to get from point A to point B, it can cause confusion. It can also, it might like not allow folks to know who's moving around in certain ways. Like you want to have like signage that communicates to drivers, like this is where a pedestrian is going to be crossing. There's children playing here, or this is a school zone. So you want to make sure that all the proper signage is in place, and you want to report that to the key folks if the wayfinding is not in place, or there's not proper signage to communicate to drivers, like what's the road conditions, who are the users of the road. Another thing that you can request is a street yield sign in your community. So if you feel like there's a lot of vehicles that are speeding or moving around in an area where there's a heavy amount of pedestrians, especially like if they're crossing the road to get to school or something, you might want to see if you can get one of these. It's like almost like a temporary pedestrian sign that you can put in the middle of the road. It has to have somebody who is responsible for it. So it might be like a local business, or maybe it's like somebody locally who's like, I'll take on this responsibility and make sure that this is moved to the center of the road at key times, and then I'll also remove it. But you need to connect with DPW and see like how that can be rolled out. But it is something that's very effective. It causes a bit more friction on the road, like because pedestrians are moving sometimes at the peripheral, trying to come to the center, but drivers are really like focused, like what is like in front of them and head on. But that the sign in the middle is like right in the line of sight of drivers, and will remind them like, oh, this is an area that I really need to make sure to keep an eye out for pedestrians. So again, take a picture of what you're seeing, identify some solutions. So you're very keen, most likely, as a person, of what is the problem, but think about what those solutions are, and maybe you want to highlight those solutions or suggest some solutions with your report. And that's a great way to like help your municipality move things along. If they know like this is a problem, like I'm seeing issues with poor pedestrian signals, and they're too short at the moment. And I feel like it took me 15 seconds instead of 12 seconds. You want to communicate that. I suggest like give them the solution. I suggest that you change the signal times to 15 seconds. I think that's a lot better for folks moving around in my community versus the 12 seconds. So give them that solution, and it's less ambiguous. But short pedestrian signals are something that we see in certain places, and those are easy fixes. It's really connecting to DPW to help them understand like how, like, what are the right configurations for the local context. You might also want to have DPW or folks in the transportation department where you live to think about like the right timing of the lighting. So you can actually have something called a pedestrian leading interval. So that means before the vehicles get a green light, pedestrians get so the cars will still be red, but pedestrians will get a walk sign first, and will be able to like get into the road before the vehicles get a green light to turn. So that will allow the pedestrians to be even more visible, and then the vehicles will get their green light to go, but then they'll see the pedestrians more clearly. So that could be something that you request, and they could be studied and see if that's something that can be implemented. Signal.
Just to I really like that idea of adding extra time for the pedestrian to cross first before the vehicle takes a right, because I've seen in the Boston area and in certain cities and towns, there's a pedestrian light that comes on and the pedestrians are crossing, but also the people are in the car. The
Right.
green arrow to take a right goes on. And so, the pedestrians are wanting to cross the street and the drivers are wanting to take that right. And it's just sometimes there are people who get struck because the drivers are not paying attention to the pedestrian. They're just paying attention to the green light to take a right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the leading pedestrian timing is definitely something that we strongly encourage municipalities to look at for implementing. So if you have the infrastructure in place and you have the technology in place, they should definitely see like how they can change that timing. It's a quick, easy thing that could be done if they have the technology. It goes back to reporting the issue. You all are on the road. You all are seeing the problems and requesting those changes. Speeding is something that folks are really keenly aware of. They see it on a daily basis. Unfortunately, vehicles are moving through communities in certain ways, and our roadways are communicating how fast should people drive. And this is something that is sometimes a little hard to understand, but the more road inventory you have, like if there's less, if you have a lot more space and the roadway doesn't have like a lot of things in the way, there's not a lot of parking on both sides of the street, folks are just going to drive faster. They're going to feel like they're on a speedway. So this is something that impacts people moving around on foot, because if you feel like people are speeding, you're not going to want to cross that road. You're going to look for a different road to cross, or you might, if you do chance it, you're kind of taking your life at risk there. So that's something that we can design our roads to make sure that there's the roadway is communicating to the driver to slow down. So just, you can change the speed limit and make sure that the speed limit is lower in a community. And a lot of communities have done that, and the state actually has given municipalities the power to change the speed limit locally. But just changing that alone is not going to address the problem, because not everyone's going to follow what the speed limit is, but also that the road is going to allow folks to still drive faster. So there needs to a municipality can think about how can the road cause more friction in a way so that folks are moving around at a slower pace. So narrowing the travel lane, adding bike lanes or pedestrian refuge islands, or adding trees. All this stuff is visual friction for the driver. So they're not going to feel like they're on a speedway, and they'll actually drive a bit more slower. So we don't recommend this for every single, this is not something you're going to do on the highway. We're not thinking that this is something that you need to do on certain arterial streets. But this is something we should definitely think about doing in really busy areas where there are folks walking around, downtown areas, or certain streets that like neighborhood streets and stuff, really designing them to be safer for a variety of different users and narrowing the road. So actually putting the road on a diet. So you don't need significant amount of road inventory for vehicles, especially if it's an area where there's going to be a lot of walkers. So yeah, sometimes you can narrow a lane just with paint. So it's just connected to DPW to make sure they're like restriping and striping it in a way where vehicles know like this is how much space they have for moving from one area to another. But you can also do it with adding parking, or with adding again vegetation, or you might want to increase the amount of sidewalk inventory, or adding a bike lane. So those are all ways to narrow things. But you can also deal with speeding in other ways too. Right now, the city of Boston, it has a whole campaign of making sure that there's more speed humps across the city. So speed humps, and especially in neighborhood streets, can really slow down vehicles, and they know like this is an area where I shouldn't be speeding, and it's a clear reminder that they need to like slow down. And you can have speed humps not only like in the middle of a roadway that is just for vehicle, but you can actually have what's considered a raised crosswalk. So a crosswalk can actually be elevated, where pedestrians are like walking on top of a speed hump that will slow vehicles down, but it also makes the pedestrian more visible, and they'll feel more secure walking on top of the speed hump. Slow zones are something that you can request from your municipality to see, communicating to them like, how is that area being used? This is an area where there's a lot of children walking around to schools and to parks. So you might want to request to see if your municipality can designate a specific area of town a slow zone. So it might require a further study. It might require folks to like examine what the conditions in that specific area. But the state does allow municipalities to now designate certain areas as slow zones. Again, it all takes us to document what the problems are, and then thinking about what the solutions are, sharing those solutions with our our municipal partners and making sure that something is implemented along the way that will have a positive impact on everyone. Disability challenges that we see in our communities, like there might be something that's in the actual on the actual sidewalk, like in this picture. Somebody who's like not visually impaired, it might not impact you on a day-to-day basis, but like if you're someone who is visually impaired, you might need to now get into the road to move around, and you can't see other vehicles as well as other folks. So there might be some challenges there that we all need to like address. So like we should think about like how are we designing our sidewalks and our roads for all users, regardless of their ability. And there are also a lot of challenges that we're seeing with lack of the right type of infrastructure for people who have disabilities. So there's something called a tactical surface that you should have at all your crosswalks. So if you ever go to a crosswalk and you see like these yellow bumps that are like on a plastic surface, those are for folks who have visual impairments and are using a cane. That basically is communicating to them that's where they should be where they can cross the road, and they're going into the road, and that they're going to this is where they should be crossing to get to the other side. And unfortunately, some places don't have that at a crosswalk. So if those are not in place, it's a bit more difficult for folks to who have visual impairments to safely cross the road. So you might want to like see if your crosswalk close to you doesn't have that, you might want to like take a picture of that and request that DPW puts that in place for your community. And again, some of these solutions I just want to highlight. If we're designing our roads and our sidewalks and our communities for the most vulnerable, it has a downstream impact on all of us. So like if we're adding curb cuts to certain areas and adding these infrastructure pieces for people who have disabilities and other mobility challenges, that helps us all. So like if that same curb cut that's helping someone move around on a wheelchair is going to help that person who's making a delivery, who is a UPS driver, going to deliver something to your house, or someone who is pushing a stroller around to get their kid to childcare, or an older adult who's using a cane and just has a bit harder challenge moving around. So those are something that we should think about. Like these solutions are for all of us, but they definitely have a greater impact on some of us. So with the challenges that we're seeing with public transit, if it's not designed in the right way, folks will have to they'll have a higher chance of not using it or feeling frustrated with it. We want folks to get onto our buses and to get onto our trains and to move around using public transit. But when those things are failing us, people will not use them. They'll just they'll get into their vehicle to go from point A to point B. But if we have benches and we have the proper shading in place, if we're treating people with dignity and respect at these places, and they're clean and they're well maintained, there's trash cans near them, and there's not a lot of litter, people will be more likely to walk to them and use public transit. So we really need to make sure that our transit infrastructure is well maintained and built for the actual users. In this picture that I'm sharing here is an unfortunate situation where a bench was placed in the wrong way and was way too close to the road too, which is not user friendly. Like imagine someone who is waiting for a bus and they're facing in the wrong direction. They can't even see if the bus is coming towards them or if the bus is on time or something like that. So just that's something to be thought about. Like if we see those problems, we should really document them and report them immediately to see if they can be addressed. That bench, after somebody took a picture of it and it actually went viral on social media. The Boston Globe wrote an article on it. So like these problems that we're seeing, that they might be small in some ways, but they are very important because they really impact people's day-to-day lives. And once we report those problems, it's going to resonate with a lot of other folks, and the problems will get addressed, especially if we like work together to elevate those challenges. So yeah, some things can't happen overnight. It's going to take a long-term planning. So you might need to plug into like a larger process. So you might need to like actually go to a community meeting and let them know about your challenges, and they're going to think about like larger strategies to address those things. So transportation is going to take a while, especially because of funding. But if we report these issues and we document what we're seeing, we're going to be able to move things along. So the Walk Audit is a great tool. If you are interested in that, definitely connect with Walk Massachusetts, and we can help conduct the Walk Audit in your community. But you can also get community members together and conduct your own Walk Audit, which is just an opportunity to walk from one place to the other and document what are some of the different challenges that you all are collectively seeing, and then kind of like putting together a memo or a report that goes to your municipality that highlights all those challenges so that they can try to address those things. Walk Audit is a community engagement tool. So like you're getting people together and they're like going through something together. It's not just like you're one person seeing the problem. So it helps to like build momentum around addressing a problem. And it shows that there's not just one person experiencing something, but it's a collective problem. Conducting a Walk Audit, you're going to be identifying the hazards and what are the opportunities too. You might not see a problem, but you might see an opportunity. This is a great place to have a bench. This is a great place to plant a tree. Identify those things and like highlight them to your municipality, and make recommendations for them on how they can make improvements. And then those reports and those memos will come up in larger long-term planning efforts too. If you want to learn more about how to conduct a Walk Audit, scan this QR code. We have like a whole program in place that's basically like YouTube videos and resources that will like give you step-by-step instructions on how to conduct your own Walk Audit. And you can also connect with us and we can help you think about how you can conduct a Walk Audit in your own community. Identifying like that focus area is so just identify like what's that issue that you're seeing in your community and trying to like hone in on that and like try to address those issues. So yeah, you're gonna want to like find what that like focus on one specific issue and try to move that along, because everything needs to have like almost some ownership to like have folks like really elevate those things. So you might want to like really elevate like crosswalks in your community. You might want to really elevate like bike lanes or something like that. So if you're honing in on something, it allows it to be like you kind of like that point person for that advocacy piece. But it's hard because we see so many different issues in our community. But that's where I think it's important to know that like you're not alone, that you need to like connect to like a variety of other people in your community to advocate alongside them. You might want to connect with other folks to advocate in a variety of different ways. Like you might want to write a letter to your local representatives, maybe put out an op-ed on issues that you're seeing in regards to like walkability, draft an email to the MBTA or draft an email to MassDOT in regards to some issues, because we need to like identify who owns certain roadways sometimes too, and not all our roadways are owned by our municipalities, you know, by the city of Quincy or the city of Boston or wherever we live. Sometimes the roadways are owned by larger entities like the MBTA or MassDOT. So we might need to like connect with them to report issues, and it might be an email that needs to be sent out, or you might need to make a more formal request, and having like multiple people do that is really helpful. So you want to build like that local movement of folks championing things. It sounds like a lot of effort, but It's actually, it can be really fun. It can be an opportunity to like connect with your neighbors and get people together to like move things along and think about like what are the different solutions together, that it's not just your problem. And then taking part in larger planning efforts can really like give you a formal opportunity to like highlight and elevate the problems that you're seeing. We have a tool on our website that you can also search it up. I'll share this link with you that you can give to participants, and they can click on the road ownership link here. But you can also just look up road inventory Massachusetts, and you can get a map that shows all of Massachusetts roads, and you can click on roads in different areas, and you can see who owns that road. Is it your municipality? Is it a MassDOT? But then you will have a better idea of who to report the issue to. You can always just connect to your municipality and the transportation department, and they'll let you know, like, yes, we're responsible for this. But if you want to then speed up the process and not even do that, you can figure out who owns the road. So figure out who owns the road, report the issues, connect with your local elected officials. If you're still not seeing the challenges addressed by DPW or the transportation department, you might want to like connect to your representatives, because they, at the end of the day, represent you, and they control the purse strings, especially like if it's like a city council or city council or something. They really make sure that these departments are able to function at the way that we need and the way that folks deserve. So you might need to connect with them to make sure that things are properly funded and are prioritized. Build a relationship with these folks and be persistent. The more you are able to like connect to folks and show up to places and people understand your face and your issues, they are more likely to get addressed. It's kind of like the saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease or the oil. So like be that squeaky wheel in a way, but be a pleasant person and be a pleasant squeaky wheel, and together, like, you'll have your issue more likely to get addressed. So yeah, it goes back to like knowing what the problem is, taking like reporting that issue and connecting to whoever is has the jurisdiction. So it could be like your local municipality, MassDOT, DCR, reporting those issues to them and then having it addressed. So that's the case for all level of government. For advocacy, it's like first you get to report the issue to the right folks and then see if they are addressing it. And if not, then you want to then connect to your to the representatives. So yeah, again, I've already mentioned this. There's different jurisdictions. There's your towns and the state. You can find out who your representative is if you just visit your town's website or your city website, and you can figure out who your city councilor is, who, if you have a mayor or if you have a town manager, figure out who those folks are, and eventually like connecting to them if your problem's not being addressed. You might also want to look up who your state legislators are, if you're really having a challenge or these things are a larger issue and require like state funding or requires us to like do some larger advocacy work. You might want to connect to your state legislator. So you can visit the Find My Legislator section of the if you just search that on Google, it actually will come up, but you can also click on this link in my presentation. But connecting to different levels of government will help you to move different size projects forward.
Yolanda, it seems like it would be a nice little community engagement type project if a community was to get in touch with their ward counselor or city councilor and have some sort of a walk audit together, so that way those elected officials will be able to not only connect with their constituents but also be able to have this nice walk around the area that they're supposed to be in charge of. And be able to have this some sort of a through a different lens of, making sure things are safe, crosswalks are fine, trees are dead, or maybe sidewalks are old and needs to be changed. So it seems like a more proactive and more engaging way to be able to advocate, or to be able to just take a look at the environment for safety.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
places do that?
Yeah, that's one recommendation that we have in our walk audit piece in the Walk Audit Academy. It's just like identifying who should be at the table for your walk audit. So it's like actually connecting to those representatives, but also DPW, inviting people from transportation departments and stuff, and having them at the table to see the problem alongside you and other residents, and the building those relationships with them is also key. So we can accomplish a lot together. So definitely recommend connecting with folks locally and like building those relationships, and like there's more power and visibility when we do things together.
I agree.
So I'll pause there and stop sharing. And if you have any other questions, we're here as a resource for folks too, and they can visit our website, walkmass.org, to connect with us, and we can provide any amount of support that they need to move things along.
Yeah, it's just you've taken the concept of just walking, up so much, so high, because there's the science and the art to it, and I think after this presentation, people will be more likely to look up and look around, and to be able to see what should be in place to help more people get out and walk. Because, it's just, I don't see too many people walking. I don't see too many people walking. And when I do see them walking, especially during the COVID times, it was nice to see people out.
Yeah.
Wore their masks, but it was nice to see people getting out and walking, because it's a healthy way of exercising, and people using the benches. It's beautiful to be able to see people just getting out and using whatever's available for them. But at the same time, your presentation has highlighted so many different key points that people can advocate for and look out for in their communities, so that way they can have a safer environment. So I really appreciate your presentation. How can people learn more or get in touch with the Walk Massachusetts to learn more?
Yeah, I think the first step is just visiting our website, walkmass.org. They can connect. They can find my contact information there. It's Spinola at walkmass.org, and just sending us an email and letting us know about what problems that they're seeing, and that we can see if we can connect with them in a variety of different ways. It might be conducting a walk audit, or it might be just learning more about their problems to connect to local departments, like transportation departments, to help them address those things. Another way that they can connect with us is they can attend we have a monthly meeting that happens over Zoom. It's the third Wednesday of the month. They can visit our website and see there's a variety of different topics that we cover, but it's an opportunity for folks to connect with transportation advocates from across the state to learn about what are the strategies that they're doing in their communities to address some of the challenges that they're seeing. So it's a good way to just network and connect with folks, and then share out what your problems are, and folks will share solutions with you. So I highly recommend checking out our statewide meetings.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. Yolanda, the time has come upon us here. We're at the top of the hour. I really appreciate everything that you shared with us, and hopefully people will, be able to create their own walk audit wherever they live, and be able to make changes that's going to help them and people around them, have a safer environment. So thank you again for being a part of this program, Aging Strong. And I also want to thank the Quincy Health Department for their sponsorship of this program. Until next time, everybody, have a great day and stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.